Stay away from my event. My brother snarled. You'll ruin everything. That night, his biggest investor saw me and stunned. Miss Lee, your hung sister? And the room went dead silent. I stood before the mirror, hands trembling as I fastened the silver necklace around my neck. A tiny star pendant gleamed, the last gift from my mother before she left me forever. Forge your path, no matter who blocks you, she'd whispered, her voice a warm flame in my heart's endless winter. 10 years later, those words still lit my way, though my path was paved with thorns and blood. I drew a deep breath, eyes tracing the navy silk gown hugging my frame. This wasn't me. I lived in hoodies, jeans, and late nights in the lab, where code was my breath, and Nexus Shield, my unhackable AI encryption, was my heart. But tonight, at the Waldorf Astoria, I wasn't just Emily Kane, CTO of Kane Innovations. I was Emily Hart, the daughter Victor Hart, my father, disowned. And I was walking into the lion's den. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, my brother, obsessed with the Hart family's perfect image. Don't even think about showing up. You're not welcome. I smirked, fingers brushing the screen. Did Ethan think his threats could stop me? He didn't know what I'd survived. The fire in my server room last week, the hack that nearly stole Nexus Shield, or the nights I sobbed alone, clutching memories of Mom. No, I wasn't here to ruin anything. I was here because Richard Blake, CEO of Apex Ventures, requested me. And because Victor, begging to meet Kane Innovations' mysterious CTO, had no idea. I slipped the phone into my clutch, took another breath, and left my apartment. New York City sparkled below, but a storm raged inside me. Mom once said, even if the world turns its back, hold your head high. I would, though my heart bled. The Waldorf Astoria loomed like a palace, golden light spilling through glass doors. Violins hummed, mingling with the elite's polished laughter. I stepped from the limo Michael Chen, my COO, insisted I take. You can't roll up to a gala in your beat-up Tesla, he'd teased, his eyes laced with worry. He knew tonight wasn't just a party. It was war. The doorman scanned the guest list. I gave my name, Emily Kane, and his eyes paused on the clipboard. Miss Kane, invited by Mr. Richard Blake. His voice held a hint of surprise. I nodded, crossing the threshold, feeling like I was stepping into a monster's jaws. Inside, the air dripped with expensive perfume and arrogance. Tuxedos and gowns glided past, diamonds glittering under chandeliers. I spotted Lillian, my stepmother, in a crimson dress, a sapphire bracelet flashing on her wrist. Her smile was sharp as a blade. Beside her was Sophie, my half-sister, whispering to a guy in a white suit, probably some crypto bro. Sophie chased fame, but she didn't know glory shattered like soap bubble. I moved through the crowd, feigning calm. Then, a cold voice sliced through. What are you doing here? Ethan stood before me, face flushed with fury. Behind him, Claire, his wife, gaped, disbelief in her eyes. Emily, she whispered, voice shaky. I once saw Claire as a sister, but that was before she chose Ethan and the Harts over me. I was invited, I said, voice steady despite my pounding heart. Ask Richard Blake if you don't believe me. Ethan stepped closer, voice low but razor sharp. You think you can ruin everything, don't you? This gala is to save Hardtech. If you try anything stupid, I'll... Mr. Blake has arrived, a voice boomed, cutting Ethan off. The crowd parted, and Richard Blake entered, his presence silencing the room. He wore a black tuxedo, eyes sweeping the crowd. Victor, my father, stood nearby, forcing a professional smile, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. Blake didn't look at Victor. His gaze found me, a faint smile on his lips. Miss Hart, he said, voice carrying. The room froze. Victor whipped around, face ashen. Lillian gripped her champagne flute, knuckles white. Sophie muttered to her crypto bro, eyes wide. I stepped forward, heels clicking on marble. "Mr. Blake," I replied, voice soft but firm. "Thank you for the invitation." Victor staggered, as if the ground had crumbled. "Emily?" he whispered, voice breaking. I met his eyes, my heart twisting. 10 years ago, he'd cast me out, called me the Hart family's failure. Now he faced the daughter he'd rejected, the one holding what Hart Tech needed to survive, Nexus Shield. "Long time no see, father," I said, a bitter edge in my voice. The crowd murmured. Lillian glided forward, her fake smile cracking. "Emily, darling, why didn't you tell the family?" Her voice was honey, but her eyes were venom. "I have no family," I shot back, fingers tightening on my star pendant. "Only my mother, and she's gone." Silence fell. Ethan stepped back, his gaze flickering between rage and confusion. Claire clutched his arm, as if fearing he'd snap. Sophie giggled, like this was some amusing drama. But Victor stared at me like I was a ghost. Did he see Mom, Anna, the woman he loved before trading his soul for Hart Tech? Blake clapped, shattering the tension. "Miss Hart, I'm eager to hear about Nexus Shield. They say it's cybersecurity's future." He turned to Victor, smile tinged with mockery. "Mr. Hart, I believe Miss Hart is why we're here tonight." Victor nodded stiffly, but his eyes stayed on me. I felt their weight, regret, anger, desperation. Hart Tech was sinking, and Nexus Shield was its lifeline, but I wasn't here to save him. I was here to prove I didn't need him, or the Hart name to be the woman Mong believed I could be. Blake gestured me to the stage. I walked, feeling every gaze pierce my back. The silver star gleamed under the lights, whispering Mom's words. I was Emily Kane, and I'd carve my own fate. On stage, chandeliers cast starlight over me. I spoke of Nexus Shield, of my dream-building Kane innovations from my past's ashes. But inside, I battled another tide. Memories of Mom, of nights I cried into my pillow because Dad no longer saw me as his daughter. I saw Victor in the crowd, his face twisted, wrestling with himself. After my speech, Blake pulled me aside. "Miss Hart, I want to invest in Kane Innovations, but I need you to work with Hart Tech." His tone was serious, eyes probing. "They need you more than you know." I gave a wry smile. "They abandoned me. Why should I save them?" Blake tilted his head. "Because sometimes forgiveness is for you, not them." His words cut deep. I turned away, eyes stinging. Forgive? I'd tried, but every glance at Victor brought back the man who burned my heart. I saw Lillian, erasing Mom's traces from the Hart home. I saw Ethan, once my brother, now a stranger guarding the Hart name at all costs. The gala wore on, but I knew this was just the beginning. The server room hack, the fire, Victor's gaze, all pieces of a larger puzzle. I'd uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As I left the Waldorf Astoria, my silver star gleamed, echoing Mom's voice. Forge your path. The Waldorf Astoria's chandelier light fractured across the room, a constellation of power and pretense. I stood on the stage, my silver star pendant warm against my skin, Richard Blake's words still ringing, "Ms. Hart." The crowd's murmurs swelled, a tide of shock and curiosity. Victor, my father, stared like I'd risen from the grave. Lillian's sapphire bracelet glinted as she clutched her martini, her smile a mask of ice. Ethan's jaw tightened, his eyes burning with denial. Sophie, my half-sister, snapped a selfie, oblivious to the storm brewing. Blake stepped forward, his voice cutting through the haze. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to clarify. Emily Hart is the visionary CTO of Kane Innovations, the force behind Nexus Shield." He paused, letting the weight settle. "And tonight, Apex Ventures proudly announces our partnership with her. A crash shattered the silence. Lillian's martini glass lay in shards at her feet, amber liquid pooling like spilled secrets. Her face paled, but her eyes screamed murder. Ethan surged forward, voice low but venomous. "She's nobody. A fraud playing dress-up. Kane Innovations? It's a fluke." I met his gaze, my heart a drumbeat of old wounds and new steel. "A fluke valued at $6,800,000,000, 0 cents, I said, my voice steady but laced with fire. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sophie's phone clattered to the table, her influencer facade cracking. Victor's eyes widened, realization dawning like a slow bleed. He'd been chasing Kane's CTO for months, begging for a meeting, unaware it was me, the daughter he'd cast out. Blake raised a hand, silencing the room. "Apex Ventures isn't just partnering with Kane Innovations. We're acquiring 65% of Hardtech Solutions, merging it with Kane to form Hardtech Kane Enterprises." His smile was sharp, a blade cloaked in charm. "Emily's vision will lead us into the future." Lillian lunged forward, her voice a hiss. "This is sabotage. She's been plotting to destroy us." Her accusation hung heavy, drawing eyes. I saw Claire, Ethan's wife, shrink back, her loyalty wavering. Sophie whispered to her crypto bro, who looked ready to bolt. I stepped to the mic, my pendant glinting like a beacon. "Sabotage? No, Lillian. Hardtech's rotting from within. Your financials are a house of cards. $2 billion, 0 cents in debt, outdated tech, and Cyberpeak eating your market share. Nexus Shield is your only shot, and it's mine." My words landed like grenades. The crowd shifted, whispers turning to murmurs of agreement. Wall Street moguls nodded, tech titans leaned forward. Victor's face crumpled, a man watching his empire slip through his fingers. "Emily," he croaked, stepping closer. "Can we talk? Alone?" His voice held a plea, but I saw the man who'd mocked my AI prototypes at 16. Calling them child's coffin was still fresh. "No," I said, cold but trembling inside. "You don't get to rewrite the past now." I turned to the crowd, voice rising. "Hardtech needs Kane Innovations to survive. Without us, you're finished." Sophie, of all people, spoke up, her voice small. We thought you failed. After you left, Dad said you'd never make it." Her honesty stung, but it was the truth I'd always known. The Hearts had buried me long before I built my empire. Blake produced a sleek folder, the acquisition contract gleaming under the lights. "Victor, it's time." His tone was final, a king commanding a fallen knight. Victor hesitated, eyes locked on me, then took the pen. Ethan exploded, shoving past Claire. "You're signing our legacy away to her? She's nothing." Victor's hand shook, but he signed, the scratch of the pen louder than Ethan's rage. Ethan stormed out, Claire trailing him, her heels clicking like a fading heartbeat. Sophie stared at me, not with envy but awe, as if seeing me for the first time. Blake turned to the crowd, voice booming. "Effective immediately. Emily Hart is CTO of Hardtech Kane Enterprises." Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then swelling into a roar. I stood tall, but inside I was a girl clutching Mom's pendant, wondering if she'd be proud. I slipped onto the terrace, the city's pulse humming below. The gala's noise faded, leaving only the wind and my thoughts. My fingers traced the silver star, Mom's words echoing, "Forge your path." I'd done it, but why did victory taste like ash? The Heart's empire was mine to reshape, yet the scars they'd left ached. Footsteps broke my reverie. Victor stood there, his tuxedo rumpled, eyes raw. "Emily, I was wrong," he said, voice thick. "I dismissed you, your dreams. I failed you." I laughed, sharp and brittle. "Failed? You erased me, Dad. You mocked my prototypes, told me I'd never be enough, and now you need me to save you." My voice cracked, betraying the tears I refused to shed. He stepped closer, hands open. "I see it now. Your mother's fire in you. Can you teach me, Emily? Can I learn from you?" I studied him, the man who'd broken me, now humbled. "Maybe," I said, voice soft but firm. "But it starts with respect." He nodded, a spark of hope in his eyes, and left me to the stars. The next morning I walked into Hart to Kane's headquarters, a glass tower piercing the Manhattan sky. The lobby buzzed with nervous energy, employees whispering as I passed. A new slogan gleamed on the wall: "Innovation is family." I almost laughed. Ironic, given the family that tried to bury me. Ethan's office was cleared, his nameplate gone, Lillian's gaudy decor, gold-framed mirrors and velvet drapes, had vanished, replaced by sleek minimalism. I entered my new office, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. On the desk sat an old book, Mom's AI textbook, dog-eared and worn. I opened it and a note slipped out, her handwriting bold: "Change the world, my star." My throat tightened. I'd gone from outcast to pioneer, from a girl mocked for her dreams to the woman reshaping an industry. Mom's belief had carried me here, through fire and betrayal. I tucked the note into my pocket, a talisman for the battles ahead. But the gala's aftershocks lingered. Late that night, I met Michael Chen at a dive bar, the kind where nobody cared about our titles. His dark eyes held a warmth that made my pulse skip, but also a shadow I couldn't place. "You were a force up there," he said, leaning close, his voice low. "But you've got enemies now, Em. That hack wasn't random." I sipped my whiskey, the burn grounding me. "Heart tech?" I asked, half joking, but his silence was answer enough. Our knees brushed under the table, a spark igniting despite the danger. Michael was my right hand, but lately his glances lingered, his touches too deliberate. I pulled back, heart racing. "We can't," I whispered, though every nerve screamed otherwise. He smirked. "All rogue charm. Can't what? Talk shop over cheap liquor?" His teasing eased the tension, but the air crackled with what we wouldn't say. I laughed, grateful for the humor, but the weight of his warning clung to me. Days later, danger struck. I was alone in the lab, refining Nexus Shield's code, when the lights flickered. A low hum grew into a screech, and sparks erupted from the servers. I dove for the fire extinguisher, heart pounding, but a shadow moved in the corner. A figure in black, gone before I could blink. The sprinklers kicked on, drenching me, but the servers were fried. Someone wanted Nexus Shield, and they weren't playing games. I called Michael, voice shaking. "We've been hit again." He was there in minutes, soaked from the rain, his hand grazing mine as he checked the damage. "This is personal," he said, eyes dark. "Someone inside knows your moves." I thought of Ethan's rage, Lillian's venom, even Victor's desperation. But another name surfaced: Claire. She'd been too quiet at the gala, her loyalty to Ethan a fragile thread. Could she be the snake in the grass? I pushed the thought down, but Michael's closeness, his breath warm against my cheek, clouded my focus. "We'll find them," he promised, and I wanted to believe him, not just about the hack. Back at the office, a lighter moment broke the strain. Sophie, of all people, showed up, her influencer swagger replaced by nervous energy. "So, can I shadow you?" she asked, twirling her hair. "I'm done with the fame thing. I want what you have." I blinked, then laughed, the sound startling us both. "Sure, Soph, but no selfies in the lab." Her grin was genuine, a crack in the heart facade. For a moment, I saw the sister I might have had if things had been different. "Deal," she said, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe not all hearts were lost. As I stood in my office, Mom's note in hand, I reflected on my journey. I'd been underestimated, mocked, cast out. Yet here I was, rewriting the rules. To you, dear readers, I ask, have you ever been overlooked, told your dreams were too big? Share your stories below. My advice? Build without permission. Your legacy will outlast their doubts. And always support the underdogs. They're the ones changing the game. Thank you for diving into this whirlwind with Emily. Will she uncover the traitor behind the hacks? Can she navigate the forbidden pull with Michael? And what's next for the hearts? Chapter 3 awaits. Drop your thoughts, theories, and love below. See you soon.